more love, more joy, everything.
It's inspired young people.
Inspiration comes from within you. When you clear out the garbage that's in your mind, you then create space for something better, more beautiful to come in.
Let's have life and have it more abundantly.
I say yes.
It's like taking a workshop. I get to be in my pajamas.
We have a very active imagination, which is why it's important to learn how to harness it and then point it in the direction you want to go.
I listen to your show every day.
It's time now for Living Your Inspired Life with Susan Burrell. Susan is no-nonsense, inspirational, motivational, and fun.
This is positive talk radio.
Practical wisdom for everyday life.
It's a gift you give yourself.
Now, here's Susan.
And welcome to Living Your Inspired Life. You're listening to News Talk 1590 KVTA. And I just invite everybody at the beginning of our show to explore our website, livingyourinspiredlife.org, and just tune in and check in with all the good work we've been doing over the last year. And we're getting ready to move into a new year coming up in a few weeks, and we're going to have some new and exciting things coming in. I can't even wait to share it with all you guys. So it's livingyourinspiredlife.org, where you can tune in and tune up to develop your power perspective. So again, I start every show with gratitude. I just sit in gratitude. I am one of those self-explorers or excavators, depending on what's going on in my life. And in my exploration of who I am and where am I going and why am I here on planet Earth, I get to meet some really awesome people doing amazing work in the world, and so many people that are integrating the old paradigm, the new paradigm, and moving into a place of self-expression that I really believe we haven't quite seen culturally yet. So with that as my preamble, I want to welcome Kristoffer Carter of This Epic Life. KC, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure to be here, Susan.
Yeah.
Loved your intro.
Well, you know, it's so interesting because, and I know you have this experience yourself, but when I put my attention on my inner life and how I want that to be my point of connection and expression in the world, I do run into the most amazing people that are doing similar and yet over the top different things than what I'm experiencing. And I learn. I guess I'm a perpetual student, Casey. I'm just always learning.
Well, I think we're all kind of lucky to kind of find one another on this similar journey, and we come into orbit with one another. We're clearly like it has to be some sort of vibrational magnetic thing, because I met you at a live event, and we initially clicked right off the bat. And yeah, it's just a pleasure to be in a forum talking about these things and, you know, giving them the attention they deserve.
So I want you to give my listeners some of your background, because one of the things that you do, which is why I was immediately wanting you to be on Living Your Inspired Life, is you are part of the vanguard of developing a new business paradigm, and you call it a culture, where meditation is part of the business, the daily doing of business.
Yeah, it's a trip. Who would have thought, based on what our parents told us, life and work was supposed to be, working in the mines, or not the mines, but working in, you know, the same job for 30 years in a little office, and, you know, culture's not talked about in the workplace, and to where we are now with the dawn of, you know, this hyper-connected, super digitally savvy world where companies that I work with and for are incredibly passionate about creating not only phenomenal, successful businesses, but phenomenal, successful human beings as part of those businesses. So just for some proof here, today I just wrapped up my 50th consecutive new hire talk. I give it once a month live from my studio here in Northeast Ohio. I gave it to a room full of maybe 40 or 50 people in Chicago. Our new hires this morning got to go to meditation training and guided meditation for a program that I helped run. And I know that this is their first week of work. They're thinking, wow, I work for this company that cares about these lofty, ambitious principles, but they're also giving me the tools to express and to connect with myself. So I see a very deep correlation between spiritual connectedness knowledge of self and our ways to maximize that in the business sphere.
There's lots of companies that are doing this now because and I interviewed one company, it's called Fresh Realm, and they were talking about how business people look at their paradigm of they stop every day and do a half-hour meditation. All the employees are invited, and then they also do a walking meditation once a week down to the beach because they're close to the ocean. And they said, now most business paradigms would go, okay, you're wasting time, you're wasting money. Those employees are going to be goofing off. And this company says that their output, and their income has improved because the individuals feel connected to each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a yogi, I know this at a very personal level. I would put action. So the old paradigm is time equals money. Mm-hmm. We know as consultants that is just not true. It should be based on outcomes and output and quality of work. And that in no way does the amount of time you spend at something, typically spinning our wheels or getting in the groove, equal the quality of work. So what I would say is, if I have my staff wherever they are meditating, getting connected, they are more likely to take right action versus action for action's sake.
Oh, good.
And that's
yeah.
what yogis have known this for thousands of years, that right action is where it is. Like, show me, divinely guide me towards taking right action. Show me in the shower each morning after I meditate the 3 high leverage things I could do today that might not take me the longest, but are certainly going to create the most output. So I think if you have teams of people doing that, executives with people at other levels, how could anything bad come from that? How could that be a waste of time?
Well, I would agree with you. I think that there's only good that comes out of stuff like that. So, Casey, let's back up a bit because I want everybody to know. I'm going to read something from This Epic Life. This Epic Life, everybody. It's This EPIC Life. Which is your website, Casey. I'm going to read something that you have on the site that just caught my attention. And you said, I believe rapid growth businesses require inspired cultures. Meditation and integration are crucial to keeping pace in the digital age. I believe we're all here to pull one another up out of the grind. So this comes from this paradigm that you're building and you're participating in comes out of you having gone through a personal transformation of a grind and then moving into a spiritual practice and becoming a yogi. Now that's got to be odd to people that are listening right now.
Well, yeah, imagine when I pop up on my coworker's screen to deliver this new hire talk, rocking my beads and my shaved head. Who is this guy? What's this interesting fellow all about? But yeah, my journey that you alluded to is that I nearly died of stress-related illness at the age of 26. I'm 40 now, but I was having aneurysm-like symptoms. I was in a cubicle. My brain was misfiring, and it was a product of just, they ended up becoming, they turned out to be stress-induced migraines. Mm-hmm. But instead of seeing halos, I would just kind of forget where I was, not be able to attach people's names to their identities, all sorts of stuff. So coming out of that, it was probably a 12-year journey of getting fiercely authentic and honest with myself and everyone around me, and then moving through like what most people move through. Well, I must need more personal development. I must need more therapy. I must need less drinking or booze, whatever. And all those paths led me to meditation. The highest levels of personal development and leadership development. I mean, you can look at any of them. Stephen Covey's one of my favorites. Brian Tracy, certainly Tony Robbins, all like the founders of this space. They really point towards reflective practices. And these practices go back way, 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 way before any of the personal development marketing stuff goes. It all goes back to like the Buddhists and the yogis. And so that's what it kind of led me. And over the course of that, I stayed with my job. I stayed with my career. I didn't just leave. My path to walk in this world is one of a householder. I have 3 children with my wife. So I can't just go be a monk in a cave somewhere as much as I would like to. I get to do that next month for my sabbatical, but not in the day-to-day. So, but in keeping with the career, I realized what a huge, like, profound need there was for some of these ancient teachings that not only saved my life, but allowed me to thrive. And I feel like a messenger for that work. I will teach people how to integrate themselves. By integrate, I mean to be able to balance the best aspects of yourself in a way, and to blend those things to create something way more powerful than any one of your singular talents or skills. So that's pretty much what I just talked about to my new hires for an hour. They get that on day one with me, so as they move through their Centro career or at our company or other places in their career, I want them to have that seed planted that work is very important, but work is really our amplifier into the outer world, where we exchange our contribution for value, and that it's only going to be more valuable to the degree that they can integrate themselves.
Well, and I like what you just said of amplifying out in the world to exchange your value, as opposed to going out in the world and conquering and accumulating. And, because that's the old paradigm. When we talk about that on Living Your Inspired Life, where the old paradigm has literally shut down and it is receding, it's gone. And everybody's standing around with their hands open going, okay, so now what do we do? And the exciting thing is we get to write it. We get to make it up however we want.
Oh, there's no better time to be alive. The convergence of, to me, what I find so fascinating about being alive these days is that convergence of technology and communication that can allow great ideas to go viral, things like TED Talks and whatever else, but also the change in consciousness that is unquestionably happening. I mean, you see the fact that we're even here today talking so much about meditation, and I just talked about it in the company, that wouldn't necessarily be happening 10 years ago. So I think that opportunity for the convergence of those two things is unlimited.
Yeah. So one of the things you do on This Epic Life, your website, is you talk about, we're kind of talking about it now, full life integration. Can you give us a broader stroke on that, Casey? Yeah,
sure. So I'll give you a couple examples of me trying my best to pursue full life integration. I define full life integration. Well, let me start with the overall framework.
Okay.
The overall framework is there's three aspects. There's their lens, which is the lens is kind of, it could be thought of as kind of developing a great attitude, except it's almost bigger than that. It's kind of like the whole way you perceive life around you. Your lens could either enhance or diminish everything you experience. So a lens that my grandfather gave me, for example, pretty inspiring guy. He was kind of like a Walt Disney of his neighborhood. His lens was something like, I believe in everyone and everything all the time, except it wasn't Pollyanna-ish. It wasn't fake. It was very real, you know?
Yeah.
And he was in awe of everything all the time. And I kind of picked up on that as a kid. So that's my lens. And then you define part two of the model is your non-negotiables. I call these your sacred life ingredients that cannot be removed or substituted. So for me, it's my soul practice or my meditation. It's my vitality, my running, and my green juice diet, these fun things. And then it gets into my family, my art as a musician. I've been a musician since I was a kid. And then I take that into my work. So I have 5 non-negotiables that are magnified by that lens. But when you work diligently at practicing, pursuing mastery in all those areas, I'm not saying like calling any of them a hobby and, you know, a weekend warrior. I'm never going to be one of those guys that says, oh, I used to play in a band, you know, I kind of pick it up. No, hell no. Like, let's get up tonight and rock some stages, you know. So, but when you integrate, you actually, Susan, you got to witness one of my opportunities to fully integrate myself. When I helped Johnson Fields run Camp Good Life Project, I get to bring the entirety of myself. I lead 6 a.m. meditation. I carry my guitar around and I inspire people and entertain people. But I also run workshops. I also, exalt the values of the family. To me, there should be no toggle between who you are and what you do. Mm-hmm. And when there's no toggle exists, that's when you know that you're achieving full life integration.
And Casey, I got to say, as a witness to your voltage, your energy, I mean, by the last day of camp, I was like brain dead, and you're still highly functioning. And I thought, oh my God, I want whatever that guy has.
Well, that's one of the questions I get a lot. It's like, what do you want and where can I get some? Mm-hmm. And the other one is, what the hell is wrong with you? Because I do infuse it with a lot of very irreverent, crazy humor and 80s pop culture references, because I'm trying to create the sugar to help the medicine go down. But what you didn't see, Susan, is that I'm running backstage all the time and chugging, cold pressed green juices shipped in from New York City. I'm getting extra meditation sessions in throughout the day. I have a radical level of self-care wrapped around all my practices that allow me to kind of keep the energy, because energy at the end of the day, I mean, at the beginning and at the end of the day, it's really all we have, and all those non-negotiables, especially the children piece, requires an inordinate amount of energy. Mm-hmm. So if I'm not, like one of the tricks I show my employees are ways to not only get paid to improve yourself, but as you work each day, you don't work towards depletion. You work towards feeling better when you get off of work than when you started. Like, how does that even happen?
I'm going to ask that question. How does that even happen, Casey? Tell us how that happens.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, my personal secret is over 8 years of working from home, I've optimized my workspace to be first and foremost a sanctuary. So I start my mornings every morning out here about 5:30 in the morning, meditating for about an hour. And then I also integrate all aspects of my office. So I have one desk that pivots into my podcast editing station. I have all my guitars hung on one wall that I could grab any instrument. We all know from the book Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, mm-hmm. if you don't have your stuff accessible, you're going to forget that you're a musician or an artist or a writer, whatever it may be. So all my stuff is always like one-touch accessible, kind of like the founder of Amazon. He's obsessed about everything being one-click accessible. Everything in my office and most things in my life now are just one quick move away. So I work out in my office. I take care of my body in my office. I meditate. I play music. I create and broadcast to the world. That's one of my main tricks, is to optimize your workspace to be very integration friendly. But then there's also, what you put into your body, how you spend your time. I mean, all the things we kind of know from reading Wayne Dyer over the years. Like, right. The people that you spend time with absolutely matter. Do they fill you up or deplete you? And the better you get at this, you tend to attract more energizer bunnies that just take you to 1.21 gigawatts of electricity when you need it. That's what does it at camp. There's no secret that I'm leeching off the energy of you other 400 amazing humans that I'm just excited to see and to be around. So how could I not try to bring my all?
Right. So how do people then, in talking about this framework and the mm-hmm. lens and the non-negotiable, there's a third thing I don't think you mentioned.
Oh yeah, it's pursuing full life integration. So okay. you have the lens, non-negotiables, pursue full life integration, and the pursuit piece is the most. It's a long-term process. There's no cutting corners on it. You could do. I have an exercise on my on my website that allows people to create a lens statement, which is very powerful. I mean, my lens statement is a summary of all the virtues that I aspire to. So it's kind of like deep values work, except I consider values to be like lowercase v's. They're very important. But virtues, I'm talking like ancient Greek virtues, capital V virtues, they tend to be much more aspirational, and they tend to pull you someplace bigger. So that lens exercise maybe takes a few minutes. Defining what's important in your life, your non-negotiables, you kind of know those like the back of your hand, or at least you should. And then, but the pursuit of full life integration, this isn't like a go out next weekend and get there. It's committing to the long haul. It's, understanding yourself at kind of like a fierce, ruthless kind of level, like knowing who you are and what you contribute, and just practicing that every day. And I wouldn't say that in any of my areas I achieve mastery, but I will say that I'm fiercely committed to pursuing mastery, and I trip over moments of greatness. So if you stick with, your music skill or your public speaking skill, whatever those non-negotiables are, long enough, you will borrow from your other non-negotiables to create something amazing.
Mm-hmm. I've had that as a personal experience, actually, what you just described.
Absolutely. Well, you told me about your degree. I mean, you reminded me of your degree. I mean, there's times in our education, in our higher education, where we have to explain to our families for the 50th time, why the hell are we getting this particular degree again?
That's
why
right.
are we studying this?
That's
and
right.
you can't always equate that to the bottom line of how you're going to repay the school debt or whatever. there will be moments when you're on stage in front of people rocking the house or adding value where you're in this state. This is, to me, a state of full life integration. It's almost like a flow state where the fact that you're a parent makes you a better teacher. The fact that you're a teacher makes you a better musician. The fact that you're a musician makes you a better communicator. That's been my experience. The opposite of that is disintegration. And when I nearly died from that stress stuff, my life felt like a jack of all trades, master of none. I couldn't access all these different silos of my talents and skills. It's a very dangerous way to live. We're taught to live through our schools that, that work should be the center of the universe and everything else orbits around it. But if that's the case, it's just not sustainable and scalable.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was contemplating my education this morning after I came off of a meditation call, and I was like, I moved to gratitude for the education that I've received, that my parents started when I was in high school, and at the same time, there have been times in my life where I have gone through this, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I am not that smart. I am not that good. I feel like a fraud, those kinds of things. And I think there's lots of people out there, whether or not you have an education, or there are times where you don't feel authentic. I would imagine there's even people out there that don't even know what authentic means. Do you know what I mean?
My gosh.
Within themselves.
Yeah.
Now, you and I live from those places, but speaking for myself, it's taken me a long time to get to that place where I feel authentic 90+% of the time.
Yeah, that's the place to aspire to. I mean, there's so much static as we move through life, so many conflicting viewpoints of what we should do with ourselves to please others. And to make that commitment to tune into that signal inside of yourself that's willing to endure the imposter syndrome that everybody goes through, no matter what level they get to, everybody experiences it. But that signal is what keeps you going, to express at that level where you actually prove eventually that you do know what the hell you're doing, that you have a singular purpose, that you are of singular value to everyone around you. I do a lot of these exercises, like the lens statement, non-negotiables, to help people really quickly figure out that ruthless self-knowledge they need to get to that place of, I can't tell you how many times I go through that same thing, specifically when I'm leading meditation retreats, because there's this question in my head that pops up with something like, this is my little ego saying, who the hell are you, this crazy kid from the suburbs of Ohio, talking about meditation? Why are all these people listening to you? Like, we'll be in Costa Rica on retreat or something, and the people in my class are kind of intimidating people. They do some pretty amazing stuff, So that imposter thing pops up. And what I do is I've trained myself to just ask the audacious question. Do you want to hear what the audacious question is?
I do.
Okay. So usually when the imposter syndrome shows up, it's coupled with this idea of, I'm not prepared for this. I don't have the right education. I don't have the right resources. I didn't have enough time. I don't have blah, blah, blah. But the audacious question is, what if I've been preparing for this my entire life?
Ooh, I got chills on that, Casey.
And when you let that hang there, what if I've been preparing for this my entire life? I know my hair on my arm stands straight up, and I get this gravity inside myself that says, drop the knowledge, kid. You're here for a reason.
Yeah, and I felt that. Yeah, and that's an awesome question to ask. What if I've been preparing for the... Okay, so now let me ask you this then. Let me reverse this. Because, I have a 21-year-old son, newly out in the world, newly minted, you know what I mean? And and he's beginning to, and of course he grew up with me.
Wow, I can't even imagine. That's going to be awesome.
I know, the poor kid. I'm so sorry for him. But so now he's come into his own, and he's already kind of pushing that membrane of life, going, wow, I can make a difference. Wow, who I am does count. Wow, what I say, because he's a supervisor in a company he's working in. And so he's like, wow, he said, Mom, I can make a positive effect on people because they need to hear positive things. Now, what do you say to a newly minted 20-something who hasn't lived life long enough, because when you say, what if I've been preparing for this all my life? Well, when you're 21, really, how long has that life been? It's been a blink.
Yeah, well, as a yogi, I kind of know that this current life is just one of the latest expressions of whatever our soul is. That's my personal belief. So we are fathoms deep before we arrive here, and then we usually forget how amazing we are, and we need to be reminded sometime in our 20s, and then kind of know by our 30s. Then we turn 40, and we're like, oh, this is who the hell I am. Right. So at the age of 21, what I would tell, and what I do tell my millennial staff or the Gen Ys, is to not tolerate it when people say things like, oh, you must be drinking the Kool-Aid. If you sound pretty positive about this workplace thing, you must be drinking the Kool-Aid. Don't tolerate that stuff. That is equating genuine positivity and passion to a mass cold killing in the 70s. We do these subtle things with language, especially in corporate spheres, where it could feel corny to be so earnest. I used to carry the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People with me on the train in Chicago in my late 20s, and I would put a dust jacket of another book on it because I didn't want people to see me reading self-help on the train, because I came from like the rock and roll world of, if you pulled that out on a tour bus, you would get probably beat up for it, or at least ostracized.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But now I rock it so loudly and proudly that people, it's no question that people want and need something to believe in. And we're not here to always show like, oh, look at me, I'm a superstar, I'm a beacon, believe in me. But when you give people permission to also glow in the dark, when you are authentic and open, and most importantly, I would tell them to be consistent. This isn't like based on your mood. This isn't based on the weather. This isn't based on how you feel this week. This is just who the hell you are every day of your life over and over. If you're positive, be the beacon, be the lighthouse. That's how my grandfather was. He was the lighthouse. But over time, you'll start seeing that gives people permission to fully express themselves, to be fully heart open, antenna up, engaged with you. And that has a catalytic effect on organizations. I wish I would have been more brave to live that way when I was 21 years old.
Yeah. And I think the good news is we're beginning to see those kids already stepping up. I mean, we saw that at the Good Life Project camp.
Yeah,
a lot of 20-somethings, 19-year-olds, man. Oh my gosh.
All right, I know, it's amazing. Right?
Yeah, and I'm like, if I was you then, wow.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, my daughter's 11, my oldest is 11, and she's doing those things. I'm trying to be very mindful I'm trying to balance that, being a parent and protecting her without dampening that audacious spirit, because the world needs it,
Mm-hmm. Well, I send you a lot of love and light on that journey, having navigated teenage years myself with my son. It does take it takes a certain kind of balance to get through that as a parent, not just the kids.
I've heard that 2 teenage girls is even going to be more fun. Yeah,
oh, honey, I'm sorry for you. So let's talk about then in the business practice, the current business that you're doing. Because you mentioned earlier you reset yourself with meditation, and it sounds like you do it several times a day. So is that what you're asking people to do in the business realm too? Because I know lots of people, they go, wow, I meditated for 15 minutes today, I got it done.
Yeah, right. If I get what I'm focusing on right now, I'm running a 30-day meditation challenge to my site. I'm just trying to solidify. I think you mentioned your husband's doing it, right?
Yep.
Forming the habit. I just want people to form the habit, because if they do it at all for 10 to 15 minutes a day, but it's every single day of their life, that consistency forms a compounded benefit. So sure, sometimes those 15 minutes might be damn painful to just watch yourself think like crazy or fight with your mind. But I'm just trying to teach business people for starters, because I got to remember that I didn't start out meditating on. It's like being a marathoner. You don't start out running 26 miles the first day. You start out trying to maybe get 5 minutes in. But now I recognize when I'm in these kind of high stakes, high value opportunity kind of settings, like a camp, like a running camp kind of thing, I do need many frequent sessions throughout the day just to stop and pause and replug. But in a typical day, I'm lucky if I get my long session in the morning, and that kind of carries me through the day. Mm-hmm. So in businesses, I'm teaching people to, yes, be mindful, pause, reflect, pause between transitions, between doing certain types of work. But in terms of a meditation sitting practice, if they're getting it once a day, they're getting an A in my book.
And then the pause is like taking a minute, maybe two, right? Mm-hmm. And just breathing.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Just kind of stopping, doing what you're doing. I mean, I do it all the time when I do mundane things that I'm trying to rush through. Doing dishes is a classic one. You have 3 kids, you do a lot of dishes. So yeah. I try to experience the water on my hands, try to smell the soap, try to really express gratitude for the home that we live in and the food that we ate. And it just immediately starts taking you down a road that's so much more productive than these damn dishes. They're always piling up. Like, these kids eat too much, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and it's also the place of a mindfulness practice is a place where we can reset into the present moment, as opposed to, because all right, now we're talking about doing dishes. When I do dishes, I'm like, all right, Kate, when I'm done with this and I gotta go run this errand or fold the laundry or make sure I email that person about the gig we were supposed to do, and I'm planning while I'm washing the dishes. I'm not there washing the dishes. An automaton's washing my dishes.
Right.
But we do that. We do that all the time. We get in the car and our mind is on.
Oh, I could read. I've been paying attention lately to books that I've read my kids, that they demand that I read them every single night. Sleeping Time for Baby Mouse is one of my favorites, by the way. By favorites, I mean I hate it. I've read it 2 million times.
And you probably have it memorized.
I'm actually able to have my voice deliver the story aloud, read it, and think about totally different things. So I'm planning my day tomorrow. I'm planning my trip later in the week. I'm not fully present, and it's a battle with me because I've just read that particular book so many times. But it's true. It's amazing what we can start to check out on when we're, not committing to just becoming present for just a second, And presence has a way of grabbing you by the collar if you don't tune in enough. I mean, it'll show up as pain. It'll show up as stress. It'll show up as, I call them teachers lovingly, but pain in the ass people. But you have an opportunity in every one of those engagements to do what Viktor Frankl taught us in Man's Search for Meaning. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and that space lies our growth and our freedom. I mean, you can take that space and expand it, but the first step is just becoming aware that there's a choice.
It's interesting as you're speaking about this, Casey. I'm hearing and seeing the mindfulness practice. It gives us an opportunity to slow down, and what I notice is when my life slows down, then I realize all those things on my to-do list are not necessary. It's like, wow, I really don't need to get any of that done. I don't even need to get any of it done. I don't need to get that one thing done. I could actually live the rest of my life without getting all these things done. And then what I find is that I come into a bigger experience of expansion where I end up having more time because I've slowed down, not less time because I've slowed down.
Right. I call that time bending.
Time bending. Yep. I like that. That works for me.
Yeah. So when you're time bending, you're fully aligned with your virtues and values. You're kind of living your aligned life. You're in the moment, going probably off script in some way, some spontaneous adventure versus the to-do list, the script of your to-do list on your desk, following the script, or the instructions. If you're talking Lego movie, you could follow the instructions or go off road a little bit. But when you're aligned, you tend to make those choices and towards expressing yourself at a higher level, not feeling so rushed with people, feeling a little bit more deeply present. And in doing so, you're probably forging relationships that will cut all sorts of corners for you. So when I have my time-bending days in the summer, I'm usually planning our company's national sales conference. It's usually something that's very stressful and very time-consuming to do. However, counterintuitively, I hop on my bike and I go down to these trails that really inspire me. And any one of my clients internally that calls me, I will talk to them as I'm riding my bike, and we'll have this exhilarating 5 to 10 minute conversation where more gets done in those 5 to 10 minutes than anybody can do in these committee hearings that last an hour to 90 minutes, whatever. And I call it time bending because we are so decisive, we are so engaged, we are so in the moment, we're not distracted that, I mean, it goes back to what you said at the beginning, like action and right action. There's no equality there. I will take right action any day over just taking more action.
Yeah, yeah. And, and it's interesting, too, because this idea of, I'm just going down that path of time bending, too, it's a yogic practice, right? Yeah. It is, because I mean, if we continue to operate in a linear manner in a world that thinks that you only go from point A to point B, that's the old paradigm. That's where we had been living up until, I don't know, about 5 years ago, when everything started to shift. And now this time bending idea is where we get to live on multiple levels at the same time. Now, am I talking in a weird? I know you're getting it, but
no, I totally get it.
Hopefully, the listeners are getting it too, because I really do think that there's a more of a vertical level that we're being called to live on, not a horizontal level. And I like to. There was in What the Bleep Do We Know, in that movie, What the Bleep Do We Know, there was the idea about the Aboriginals are standing on the shore, and Columbus or whatever ship is coming into shore, and they're standing there going, I don't know I don't see anything. But the shaman, who lives in a vertical manner on multiple levels, was the one that was able to actually see a physical something coming in and going, oh, it's a whatever they wanted to call it, ship. And eventually then the rest of the people could see it. And I think that we're all being called to live in a vertical manner, not a horizontal manner. And I also mean, like, not laying down and taking it, or, not laying down and tuning out, but really tuning up.
Well, I couldn't agree more with that. I think there's a few different ways to experience it and describe it. Like when I teach business people how to meditate, I usually make the analogy of, you could be down in the maze in your life, which is kind of your analogy for like linear time is the horizontal, what you were saying. Mm-hmm. And we could be experiencing horizontal time, or if we're down in this maze, we might be afraid of what's behind the next corner. We have a limited line of sight. And it's usually we're very fear-based and we're apprehensive. However, if you cultivate your meta-attention through meditation training and practice, your meta-attention grows. And more often than not, your life feels like you're vertical up above the maze, where you could see adjacent possibilities, shortcuts, opportunities, resources that you were totally blind to when you're down in it.
Right.
I'm not saying I operate there every single day, but if I keep my practice up and I'm on my game, I trip over more opportunities to have that perspective where you could become more like Trinity in the Matrix, and instead of getting hit by a bullet, you can pause, bend, and that to me is time bending. Is not succumbing to the cultural sickness, which is our relationship with time is totally jacked. Like we compare ourselves with it, like, how much did you get done today, man? And how many things are on your schedule? Like, man, I'm so busy. I never play the busyness game with anybody, but I love to hear, what did you accomplish? What are you passionate about? What are you moving towards? Where did you pause? Like, what moment today took your breath away? What gave you full body chills? That's the stuff that you really miss when you're so chained to the clock.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, Casey, I have been, over the last few years, really trying to unwrap myself from that mindset you just described of what did you get done and how much did you accomplish. And I get caught by it still constantly. It's almost like it's a feeling of having saran wrap around me, and I haven't gotten to the end where it completely comes off. And every once in a while, during the day, I think multiple times during the day, I still get caught with, what did I get done? And then at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, I had a good day, so it doesn't matter, the doneness.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Well, when you have these kinds of conversations on the regular with amazing people, like I saw them on your website. I mean, that is an awesome body of work that is well worth your time, you know. Everybody goes through that. We confuse our self-worth with what we accomplished or how much money we made last year. It's a very common kind of egoic way to live that's based on, you know, how we were raised and educated. And they did the best they could. They made us productive people, damn it. Like, we're productive. We get it done. But I agree. I think the best days are when you take a mental snapshot of your children and realize you're going to remember that moment the entire life.
Yeah.
You know, when you're fully present, you know, like the greatest thing you could possibly contribute to another person, it truly is your presence. And it's how you listen, it's how you collaborate, it's where you take them. And I feel like you lose a little bit of that in staying in the to-do list.
Yeah, and I gotta give out another quote, and this was from a workshop that I did with you at the Good Life Project at camp, and you said, I wrote it down because I'm like, I love that. Perfection is futile. Integration is crucial.
Yeah.
And because my unwrapping, and I don't know how long this will take me, certainly past Christmas, you know, I think the rest of my life, is the unwrapping of the perfection idea that was instilled in me at in my youth. Maybe I even came in with it again, you know, to get it yet again. I don't need to do that, and this integration idea that you're bringing out into the world, Casey, on multiple levels, that's really, I think, why we're here. I used to say we're here to evolve, but I really get that it's not the evolution but the integration that we're about now.
Gosh, something you just said triggered this idea, and that's the perfection. What I meant with imperfection is futile is that usually that manifests in very dark ways with our work output. We'll hold ourselves back and polish and perfect, and merchandise our Facebook feed to give some fake version of our life, and just like there's all this perfection happening all over it. It's fake. It's not authentic. But when you're integrated, you're really your true sense of perfection because you are your singular value. And no two are alike. They are like thumbprints. Everybody's got their unique lens statement, their unique combination of non-negotiables, and then there are ways to express those. So that's where I was going with it, is that when you're integrated, you can pull yourself out of that hustle of, look what I did, look at how talented. I mean, I had these same damaging things as a kid of my mom was a great visual artist, and I was always trying to show what a talented artist I was. And I think I picked up so many instruments along the way by showing, like, look, Mom, I could play a bunch of stuff too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But by the end of it, a few years ago, I finished a record that took me 4 years to produce that I don't even like listening to because it's overproduced. It's overly perfect. It doesn't sound enough like
wow.
It doesn't sound enough to me like humans did it, you know?
Yeah.
And as a result, I just started moving more towards the raw and the real and what can we create in the moment that blows our mind. And all the people that I really gravitate towards are the people that do that.
Mm-hmm. So then, Casey, let's talk a little bit more. What is your vision for your website, thisepiclife.com?
Yeah.
What is it? Where do you see it going over the next year? Because you just launched it this last fall.
Yeah. I just it started out as a blog a couple of years ago, and I kind of rebranded, relaunched everything, and realigned all the content. Right now, the content is designed to help get people on the path to full life integration. So there's a few things there that are free. There's the manifesto, 75-page multimedia document that gives you all the tools. It comes with a workbook. I'm a curriculum designer for our company, so I do a lot of training, so I design a lot of cool learning material. And I wanted people to have those tools that I was killed to have. That, in turn, helps build my list and build my community. And also, I do the 30-day meditation challenges. The first one's running right now, but they're going to keep running consecutively all year long. I am here to help people up-level their consciousness. I'm a messenger for that work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And on the back end, what that helps me do is it helps establish my consultancy. So I consult with companies on building culture and bringing meditation in and sharing what I've learned about building these worldwide communities of people that are, hell-bent on integration and meditation. So that's kind of where I see it going. It's kind of a content engine. I release guided meditations for high-impact people, I call them. So I push those out on my iTunes podcast through the site, but I also push them out in an app called Insight Timer.
Love Insight Timer.
Insight Timer is great, yeah. So if you search my name, Kristoffer Carter, it's a K2F. My guided meditations have been really well received by that community, and I'm going to continue publishing those because I realized that the biggest, if I have an asset, it's kind of the fearlessness of being a young touring musician. But when I couple that with my passion for spirituality and self-care and personal development, I want to get people at that very kind of intimate, meditative level. If I could give them the tools that take them on a journey, I hold that responsibility very seriously. I mean, to be able to connect with those people at that level, I just want to help improve lives, and I feel like that's the way to do it.
Yeah. So for anybody that's listening, if you don't have this app, it's great. It's called Insight Timer, and it helps you develop a meditation practice. Listening to Casey's guided meditations, or you can just set a timer. I use it all the time, especially if I feel like my day is very full. That way I know I'm getting my meditation in, and it reminds me when to recheck in, because there's bells, everybody, that you can reset your mind. It's a great tool.
It's got those interval bells. Yeah, on the front end, it's an amazing timer with all these different sampled bells and gongs and things. But it also clocks all your time, so you could reward yourself by saying, like, wow, I meditated. I think I'm up to something like 700 sessions on there. And over time, you could see how many hours that adds up to. So it kind of, it lets you know that you're making these tiny little deposits every day that add up to something meaningful over time.
Mm-hmm. As you expand your consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So also you did something called The Pause.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that running on your website, This Epic Life, or do you get that through the Insight Timer?
Yeah, so the pause was my live event I did through the summer, and I'll do this periodically. It was an experiment to try to get people together live to do virtual meditation. And we did it every Thursday in the summer. We would pause for 30 minutes together. And I had people worldwide coming together. Some weeks it was 50, sometimes it was 100. So I use this tool called Zoom, where we all share our camera, and I do what I would do live in a room with people. I tune into the needs of the room, and I try to take us on a journey. I try to meditate myself while I'm doing it. And those became the guided meditations. I take those and I edit them down to put into Insight Timer. So you can kind of hear the different themes. Like, we explore a theme each week. But as part of the 30-day meditation challenge, I'll bring back the pause to get people reinfused halfway through to make sure they continue on to 30 days. And then I'll give them one before they leave, just to make sure that the practice continues after we're done.
Awesome. I think that's awesome. Now, let's pop a little bit the Good Life Project, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Why don't you share with everybody what it is and how you got involved?
Yeah, so the Good Life Project is the brainchild of the amazing Jonathan Fields, best-selling author, speaker, and serial entrepreneur. You might know his podcast. The Good Life Project podcast has become kind of a big deal in the last few years. But him and his wife founded this brand all around an exploration of how to live the good life. And the first program they offered, I went through it as a participant back in 2012. And I got so much out of it, and I became such an evangelist for how it helped me that I got asked to come back as a staff member. So now I help design the experiences a little bit. I help run the experiences, mostly from the learning design side. I help set agendas and learning objectives and create killer learning collateral. But I'm really passionate about that whole community because it helps me give back something that was so transformational in my life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And my experience of it, I've been sharing it since I went to camp last August, has been to meet people, mostly entrepreneurs, that are exploring avenues of self-expression, new avenues, recreation, if you will, as well. And the people there, or the people that participate, the first thing I noticed is that nobody was there to get something from me. And I was in show business for years, so I have that culture in the back running all the time in my brain of, okay, when somebody approaches me, it's like, okay, what is it you want from me? Because you always want something from somebody when you're in show business. What can you do for me? You know, are you the one that's going to open the door to my amazing film career?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What have you done for me lately?
Right, exactly. What have you done, and what have you done for me lately? Yeah. And this group of individuals, nobody was in that mindset that I experienced. Everybody was like, what can I do for you? Let me find out who you are. Let me feel into who you are and see if there's a connection where we can maybe network together. I was like, wow, that's what I like.
Oh my gosh, it's so refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really, truly, it was. It really, truly was. So
yeah, I have on my wall right here, I have the Good Life Project. Create. The 3 biggest words are make, love, give. So it's make, create stuff, make meaning, love. So it's a lot of reflection and being sweet and with everybody around you, and then give. And the give is huge. And that culture, that group of people is so. I mean, when I go to camp, I make friends in a weekend that become like lifelong friends. I mean, not only lifelong friends, but fierce allies. You know, people that like you that invite me to have amazing conversations or that get so geeked out about the work you're doing. And everybody there is genuinely fascinated by what everyone else does. They're not there just to provide lip service.
Yeah, and there are some people that are not, you know, there's people that are doing whatever their business is, large or small. Like there was a woman I met who she knits. And so she was all about, how am I going to sell all the amazing things that I knit? And I'm like, oh my gosh, my mother knitted and she never sold any of it, you know? So I'm like, wow. And this individual she's looking to not only create artwork, because a lot of it is artwork, but how to sell it, how to get it out in the world. And I was fascinated with all the different modalities of business that I was learning about.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, then you'll see, like, one of my favorite guys, this guy Miguel Marengo from Mexico City. He runs something like 8 different companies. He's a very extremely successful, humble, beautiful guy. And he's like sitting on the floor with everybody doing arts and crafts, making malas, being a kid. And this guy, at all of his companies, he works in the pharma industry. He owns all these places. And something like 30% of his entire workforce is handicapped or disabled. Like he is passionate about putting handicapped and disabled people to work in Mexico City. But he's just so one of the people hanging he's staying up all night for the talent show, just doing whatever. I mean, that's the magic of getting people to really connect and to live together on site during an event like that versus going back at a conference. You'd go back to your hotel room and maybe hit the bar or whatever. Like, people can become fiercely integrated amongst each other too, you know, and it's a powerful thing.
Well, and that's the thing I appreciate is this side, going back to integration again, Casey, is that place where, well, this is what I talk about all the time on Living Your Inspired Life, is being open-hearted. And in order to do that, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And in the vulnerability is where we connect with each other. And that's a lot of what going to camp, at least for me, was of stripping off whatever my preconceived ideas are and just being open-hearted and vulnerable to allow myself to just experience what was being given to experience. And to do that in your everyday life as well, you know, to bring that experience back and then integrate it into your everyday life. How can I be open-hearted and vulnerable and allow myself to just play fully out?
Right. Oh my gosh, what a gift, right?
Yeah, it is a gift, and in the daily living of life, I doubt that there's lots of people that live that way consistently.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they do on the 3rd day of a 1-week vacation, you know, where they're just far enough away from their life on either side where they could freak out and run down the beach and be a kid. But to romp around like a child for 4 days. And I don't mean that in a demeaning sense. I mean that in the truest expecting great stuff to happen, and lo and behold, great stuff happens kind of sense. It is a gift, but it also takes some reconditioning and some letting down of the layers, like you go through this. I watch people go through this metamorphosis where they're holding on and they're resisting so much. They want to believe it's a cult of some sort. They want to believe that, that something's broken. Then they have a breakthrough and usually some sort of emotional release. There's usually some tears followed by maniacal laughter. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, this is what it means to be fully alive and engaged with the people around you.
Yeah.
And totally sober too. Like there's no drinking at camp. There's no like social lubricant that that you have to trick ourselves into some altered state. It's just about being real. It's fascinating.
Yeah. It is the thing that over the last few years I have committed myself to be. Not just authentic, but in that place of when I feel myself running into my resistance, which happens often, daily sometimes.
Sure.
Where do I need to let go of my expectation? Where do I need to detach and then just really play full out? So Casey, thank you so much for joining me today. Kristoffer Carter, the website is This Epic Life, EPIC life.com. And I invite everybody to go there and begin your 30-day challenge on meditation and check out what Casey's going to be doing in the new year. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.
My pleasure, Susan. You've been awesome to talk with.
Thank you. And I'm just going to end it with, and so it is, namaste.